YouTube, us it going the Goat House is back. Got a good one for you guys today, ranking every single offensive line unit from 32 to 1 for the upcoming 2021 season. Recently, a lot of people have been asking in the comments section for this video, so I'm excited to bring it to you guys. Every single team, like we said, ranked. I also predict who I think the starting offensive line will be. So every team has their own graphic in this video. A lot went into it. So again, pumped to do this one here. Hopefully you enjoy it. Smash the like button, subscribe if you did. Full NFL coverage here. Make sure you follow that Twitter. You're missing out if you're not following that. A lot of NFL news. Melvin Ingram just signed with the Steelers moments ago. We actually talked about that being a potential signing yesterday, which was Sunday. So again, you're missing out if you're not following that. If you could follow us, it'd be much appreciated if you can help us reach that goal. Link, description, comments, every single video. And then here's that Twitter. Again, Ingram signs with the Steelers. We talked about it. Some changes in some rankings because of that, so go check it out. But here we go. Offensive line units from 32 to 1 based on the season. And speaking of the Steelers, unfortunately, they come in last year with their offensive line changes this year. They did draft a couple of solid players that I like. Really, where they're weak is that tackle position. As you can see, Okafor really struggled at the right tackle position. He's going to have to play left, we expect this year. And Zach Banner was a promising young player before an injury. Definitely needs to develop in a hurry, though, if they want this offensive line to be solid. The interior, honestly, could be sneaky solid. I've talked about this recently on Twitter that, the pass protection was actually okay last year. The run blocking was not. They're gearing towards running the ball, so they actually improved the run blocking. I think that it actually could improve, not by a whole lot, but the pass protection will suffer because of it. I think Kevin Dotson, we can cover him. We can pencil him in to start at left guard. Center, they got a couple options here when they brought back B.J. Finney. I'm going to go with the rookie Kendrick Green. They made a statement. They want to run the ball more effectively. Kendrick Green's a hell of a run-blocking interior offensive lineman, whether he's at guard or center. So, it would make sense to plug him in now, get him going. And they did bring in Trey Turner, who has declined, but it kind of puts a Band-Aid on the situation here. They do get better with Trey Turner than with their situation after DeCastro was cut. So, yeah, really lacking at the most important position group here at the tackle position. So, interesting to see how it'll play this year. Coming at 31 is going to be the Carolina Panthers. Now, last year they played better than they were on paper. Not a whole lot better, but they did play better. But it still looks pretty rough for this year. Cam Irving at left tackle, he's been a solid depth guy. If a team's looking for an important depth guy at the tackle position, it's kind of been Cam Irving. I feel like he'll start. Greg Little, experiment hasn't really worked out. Elflein has really struggled as a starter. I don't think this guy should be a starter. They signed him. They didn't give him a ton of money for a free agent, but the money that they gave him kind of suggests that he could start. He's just really struggled in his young career so far. Matt Paradis is a solid center. Right guard, Dennis Daly. It's kind of a prediction here. It could be John Miller. Daly's pretty versatile. I think if you just stick him in that spot, the right guard position, I think he can actually grow, be pretty solid. So it's between, again, him and John Miller. I think they'll go Daly is what they should do. Bright spot here. Taylor Moton is one of the very best right tackles in football. He's young. He's actually getting better still. It's a big reason why they gave him that big contract. So I do love me some Taylor Moton here. But other than that, it's pretty rough. But I think the system, the scheme is kind of there to make the offensive line look better than what it is on paper. But it is pretty rough on paper at the same time. But with that being said, I do think it's at the bottom, towards bottom part. Some people may, because on paper, may predict it at 32. It could play slightly better than what it looks on paper. I don't think it'll be as good as last year. But again, Taylor Moton's getting better, so interesting. 30 is going to be the Bengals. Got better. The Bengals offensive line got better, but they're at 30, so that's kind of weird thinking about that because they were either 31 or 32 last year, I'd say, so slightly better. But Jonah Williams at left tackle, the key is for him to stay healthy. I always thought he was going to be a guard in the NFL, and I guess that's still a possibility, but they're just insisting on him in tackle. Not that I think that anything's wrong with that, but he's got to stay healthy there. There's really a battle between quite a few guys at the guard position. I mean, Jackson Carman could sneak in there. He was kind of stressing the fact during the pre-draft process that he was a tackle. It sounded like the Bengals wanted to move him to guard. But I almost could think Carman could be the future right tackle because Riley Reef is a one-year deal. He's not a long-term option, not at all. So this is kind of what I came away with the guards. I think Quentin Spain's pretty underrated. I think he's a solid run blocker there with what they need. So I would pencil him in as a starter. There's some people that don't believe he's – I'm not saying it's a sure thing, I guess. It's pretty borderline, I guess, but I almost want to call him a sure thing. Trey Hopkins at center, so they're kind of lacking in some spots. Riley Reeves had a rough go the last few years. Moving to right tackle could revive him a little bit maybe, but it's really – there's some weak spots here. It's about Reeves playing a little better than what he's been playing. It's about Jonah Williams staying healthy and Quentin's playing his game. I almost view Spain as the best offensive lineman in this group, and that kind of shows why maybe it's towards the bottom here. 29 is going to be the Dolphins. Interesting. They can go a variety of different routes here. This is probably one of the tougher ones to predict who will start where. This is who I think will play most of the snaps this year. Interesting, too, because they actually played way better than expected early last year. They kind of came back down to earth later in the year. So where will they be playing? It seems like almost every offensive line plays pretty solid early on, over time where everything will kind of show the true offensive lines. Austin Jackson still needs to develop a little further. I wasn't a huge fan of that pick, but he got some reps under his belt. That was good last year. Solomon Kinley was surprisingly solid for them. A guy that can play left or right guard, in my opinion. Matt Skura from the Ravens was once a solid center based off last year's play. Pretty rough, so not a whole lot of expectations there. I like Robert Hunt as a guard. He played right tackle last year. It's where this kind of comes into being hard to predict because he could stay at right tackle, and he's a solid right tackle. I think this guy's got Pro Bowl potential, not Pro Bowl yet, but Pro Bowl potential at the guard position. At tackle, I think he'd be a solid tackle. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler. So I think it'll help putting Robert Hunt at guard, and they drafted Liam Eichenberg in the second round. They're kind of a guy they had to have, so some people predict him on the bench. They weren't afraid to put Austin Jackson in there, so I think they'll play Liam Eichenberg at right tackle, which I kind of like him at right tackle. I'm not a fan of him at left tackle. I was a little lower on Liam Eichenberg as a left tackle than compared to the rest of the world, not a whole bunch lower. I think he can be a solid right tackle. They also have DJ Fluker, kind of feels like an insurance piece, but he could start at guard. He has experience at tackle as well, but I would definitely much rather have him at guard if he were to start, but I kind of like their guards here. I think the young tackles could struggle a little bit. Again, I like Eichenberg's future at right tackle, but could have some struggles right away. He's a good run blocker, but I think he could have some struggles with pass protection. Robert Hunt's my favorite piece of this. Even if he's at tackle, he's my favorite piece. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They need to protect Tua. They got the weapons for Tua for the most part. Next, 28, the Bears. The Bears are interesting because they kind of made their offense, but their offensive line kind of got worse for the better, if that makes sense at all. I think it's worse right now, but it's going to be better in the future. A prime example for that is really the only example for that is Tevin Jenkins. They move on from Charles Leno, who's been struggling. But then they add Tevin Jenkins. I don't think that helps them right now. You look at Tevin Jenkins, a good prospect, but really as a right tackle with a lot of room to grow as a pass protector. Now moving him to left tackle, it's a lot of pressure there, and he can be solid. We saw Jedrick Wills, different type of prospect, but go from right to left and play out of his mind still. So, that could be a struggle early on, but they're going to be better in the future because of that move. And I thought it was interesting that they were looking into Morgan Moses, and they actually wanted to move him to left tackle. And they said Jenkins would move to left tackle. So was that, they didn't really want to rush Jenkins into it, or were they having second thoughts, maybe moving him to keeping him at right tackle if they signed Moses? So I thought that was interesting. Some questions there. I like their interior, actually. I like James Daniels. Has got to be healthy. He also can play center if needed. But Sam Mustipher, the young center out of Notre Dame, kind of stepped up last year, so I think this could be the route they go. And I like Cody Whitehair, another guy that can play center if needed, but I like him at guard or center. I think he's a fantastic interior offensive lineman. And Jermaine Ifedi at right tackle, a guy that could play guard. They could have Wilkinson play right tackle, but I believe this is the route they go, unless at camp they realize, okay, Tevin Jenkins he's a good right tackle, so let's not switch that. It's a possibility. We just kind of get the vibes from them that they want to move him to left tackle. So, the most important pieces are tackles. They'll hold more value in a ranking system like this. They'll hold more value on the field, actually. So I think they're lacking today at tackle, but I think they got a future there because I like the young interior group. I like Tevin Jenkins for the future. But maybe a little bit of a step down this year for the Bears offensive line. 27 is going to be the Giants. Weird one because the Giants could be the worst offensive line in football. I want them to go with my lineup here, my depth chart, and it's a little on the fence. It's a tough, just like the Dolphins, it's a tough team to predict who they will start. I want them to go this route, and they almost have to go this route. Andrew Thomas at left tackle. He struggled a bit last year, but he's young. He's a solid prospect. I think he's going to be okay. Can't have too much expectations for year 2, but should be better than year 1, right? And I think he'll be okay in the future. Shane Lemieux looked pretty solid right when he got thrown in a situation. He was better than where he ended up. Kind of came back down to earth a little bit, but a solid young piece. Center, I put Zach Fulton in here, who they added. They can go with a few different routes. They added Fulton. He has experience at guard and center. I would like for them to play him at center. Feels like an upgrade. Not a huge one. It feels like an upgrade. Will Hernandez at right guard. He's been a little underwhelming maybe, but I think he'll be fine at the guard position, him and Lemieux. And this is a big question mark too. I would like for them to go Nate Solder at right tackle. I could even flip them. Andrew Thomas actually has experience at right tackle. Solder has experience at left. So I'm fine with them flipping. They do have a young Matt Pert who has some upside. Solid young player. I think this is your best bet, though. I think this is your best option. On top of that, you could have moved on from Nate Solder. You brought back Nate Solder for a reason. There's a reason you brought him back, and to me, it's not on the bench. It's not being on the bench. It is left or right tackle. Maybe some upside at right tackle. Not that he's going to continue to get better, but moving from left, then having a year off, going to right, he could play a little better. He could. I'm not guaranteeing it. That's not my prediction, but I think this is their best offensive line here. And on paper, it actually looks solid for a Giants offensive line. So they could play a little better than expected. They're insisting on some of these young guys. They didn't want to go out there and really add anybody because they're insisting on developing these guys with Daniel Jones. So basically, it better work. Bottom line, but on paper, the way I have it, I don't think they're the worst offensive line in football. But with the certain group of guys out there, and a certain group of guys not improving, Thomas, Lemieux, Hernandez, they could end up being the worst. So they're kind of that close. They're 27, but that close to being at the bottom. This team, Vikings, I thought were at the bottom. They were at the bottom last year. Either 30, 31, 32 in that range. But they improved it in my opinion. It's not a huge step up, obviously. I think this is one for the future if some of these guys develop properly, which I guess you're asking a lot when it comes to the Vikings because they've kind of had a rough go at offensive line, especially developing young ones. But this looks pretty good for the future here because how young they are and some upside here with these players. But we could still see some struggle right away. Christian Darrisaw, I loved his tape. Big difference this past year, the year before, so hopefully he's playing like this past year, which would make sense. In terms of, for Darrisaw, how he played this year. So I think it's a solid left tackle. They added not crazy expectations right away. They added Wyatt Davis. I think he can play that left guard spot. So there's a rookie, Garrett Bradbury, a rookie a couple years ago. Solid run blocking center. Needs the, improve in terms of the pass protection in the interior. Ezra Cleveland, they drafted last year as a tackle. They moved him to guard, so some upside there. And Brian O'Neill is their standout guy. He's a phenomenal right tackle. So Brian O'Neill being the oldest guy of the group, it's pretty promising for the future. Just you can't have a whole bunch of expectations right away. I think to get these guys developing at a rapid rate, and getting as good as they can get because you're as good as your unit in terms of the offensive line. I think you play these guys together. If they had other pieces that were just plain and simple better, then you got to go with the better guys. They really don't, in my opinion. So I think you might as well develop the group here together because if they reach their potential, which all these guys have, this could be one for the future. But a ways to go still for the Vikings. But I do like kind of the direction they headed this offseason. Next, 25 is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. Dwayne Brown's a very, very solid left tackle. It is up there in age, so does he decline a little bit? If he does, I'm certainly not too worried because he's a very solid left tackle. Damian Lewis, a solid interior player, young interior player from LSU. Could also play center if you need him to, but I like him at left guard. Ethan Posich, was surprised they brought him back, but there was really no other options, so that's kind of a weak spot. They had Gabe Jackson, so that's a pretty solid addition. Brandon Shell maybe was a little better than expected. Still not a whole lot of expectations. It's a spot where they could get better. It's not terrible at all, but they could get better in that spot. But between Brown, Damian Lewis, Gabe Jackson, it's a pretty good trio there. It's not like we have crazy expectations for Lewis or, we think Gabe Jackson's a great guard, but he's been pretty solid for the Raiders. We'll see how it works for Seattle. So they come in at 25. 24 is going to be the Falcons. In my head, all these offense lines, I kind of have an idea where they'll be, and then I kind of create this video, and then compare each offensive line to each other. The Falcons end up being actually a little lower than I thought on my own rankings that I thought they would be on my own rankings, a little bit lower. There's some promise here for the future, though, for sure. Jake Matthews is a fine left tackle, very solid left tackle. They add Jalen Mayfield, who actually could be a right tackle. He played right tackle for Michigan, could be solid there. I like him at left guard. We'll see if they end up doing that. I think they will, and that's my prediction. But I think he can be, can't have crazy expectations right away, but he was a pretty nasty, good run blocker, even at the tackle position, so some upside there. Center, a little bit of a battle. We got Matt Hennessy, and we have Dahlman, who they drafted out of Stanford. So a little bit of a battle there. They have Chris Lindstrom at guard. A lot of upside. Been maybe a little underwhelming, but still, he could be solid. I think he's going to be solid. He hasn't really shown that where we can be like, okay, this is for sure a solid guard right now. Caleb McGarry wasn't a huge fan of that draft pick. Had some minor injuries. Has been a little underwhelming, but again, he has upside. So it's really Matthews kind of carrying the group, but I think Lindstrom could be good. I think Mayfield could be good. It's just they're relying on some development here, so it's going to be interesting to see. But they'll come. The Falcons, that is, will come in at 24. Next, Washington football team. They had Charles Leno. I'm expecting him to play left tackle. Then we'll go over to the right tackle, the swing tackle here, Cornelius Lucas, who's a solid swing tackle for the right tackle position in my opinion. But they did add Samuel Cosmi from Texas. I wasn't a huge Cosmi guy as a pre-draft prospect, but he was solid. I liked the pick, solid pick. There was some that just thought he was a first-round guy. I did not think he was a first-round guy. So he is it's interesting because Cosmi is kind of battling for two spots. He could win the left tackle spot. He could win the right tackle spot. But this is where I think they'll go. I think they won't want to rush Cosmi into that spot. And these guys, both spots, Leno, Lucas, you can get better in those spots, but they're solid options here. Eric Flowers, they add back actually at the guard position. Never been a huge Eric Flowers guy. He had one good season. Big thing here is I was on Washington a couple seasons ago, so they do get him back. I do like their interior. Chase Rollier, they recently re-signed, very solid young center. Brandon Scherf's a very good right guard. Just got to stay healthy. So I like the interior. There's some balance to this group. They could get better at the tackle position though. 22 is going to be the Raiders. Yeah, I originally thought, the idea in my head, I would probably have them ranked a little better, but this is kind of where they ended up. They did make some moves this offseason. They're coached pretty well at the offensive line position. There was guys injured. There was guys rotating in, and it felt like the next guy was almost as good as the previous guy. So that's kind of the good sign. Colton Miller's getting better at left tackle. Richie Incognito is a very solid left guard, just the injury concern with his age there. Andre James seems a little pretty promising. They could go Martin there. Remember they added him, but it sounds like they like Andre James there. Denzel Good is experienced at tackle and guard, and they'll play him there. Leatherwood, I would almost wish they would swap Good and Leatherwood, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think Leatherwood could be a very good guard. I worry about him a bit against speed rushers, which in today's NFL there's more of, and they seem to be coming off that side. I do worry about him early on against those speed rushers, the most athletic rushers there from the right side. So, I guess it's somewhat of a balanced group. There's no giant hole. They're coached pretty well. It's probably one that's going to play a little better than how they look on paper. Some people would probably rank them lower just based on paper. But you're kind of relying on some health, mainly with Incognito. You're relying on a little bit more development from Miller, James, now that we get to see him more. And Good's been a key depth piece that has had to play a lot. Let's see how he is as a starter here. So, yeah, this would be pretty big, though, because when Derek Carr's kept clean, he plays extremely well. When he's not kept clean, it kind of goes for every quarterback, but I see a pretty big gap for Derek Carr in that. So this will be huge for this Raiders Gruden offense here. 21 is going to be the Chargers. Chargers offensive line struggled a bit last year, and something that kind of gets swept under the radar for some reason is that how well Justin Herbert played under pressure as a rookie, as a guy that was supposed to be a raw prospect as well. So that I like that, and what kind of where I'm going with that is they actually made their offensive line better. So that's impressive. That's a good sign here. They made it better. I don't expect crazy good things from it, but it should be one for the future as well. That's fantastic news, knowing that you have Justin Herbert. Rashawn Slater, loved him as a prospect. Northwestern, he's going to be good. Can't have crazy expectations after the opt-out in the first year here, but I think he'll be good. A little bit of a weaker spot here with Abuche at the left guard spot. Likely to earn that, but that's a spot where you definitely can get better. They had Corey Linsley, big-time center here from the Green Bay Packers. I guess what I'm waiting to see here, the big question mark is, will Linsley be as good as he was last year? He played like the very best center in football last year. Packers are known for their offensive line unit, developing those guys, coaching them well. They mainly, always feels like they play better because of the system. So will Linsley be as good as he was in the Packers? I wouldn't expect him to be the very best center in football, maybe too high of expectations, but I expect him to be good. I definitely expect him to be up there. Matt Filer at right guard. They improved with Filer. Just kind of an average guard, has experience at tackle, so that helps as well, because the right tackle is very good, a big-time player in Brian Bulaga, but hate to say it, you don't expect him to finish the season. You just don't, so that you hate to say it again. But Filer could play right tackle if they absolutely need him to. They added Yames from Nebraska. I liked him as a prospect. Could be a future right tackle for them because the rest of the group is pretty young. You just need that right tackle in the future. They may have it kind of waiting in the wing there. So Chargers looking good for the future, and they made it better for this year, so that's a good sign. Cardinals at 20, two stud pieces here. In DJ Humphries, the left tackle, and Rodney Hudson, the center. They went out and added Hudson. That's fantastic for the interior. Pugh is okay. He's definitely declining a bit, but that right side, that's kind of what weighs us down in the 20s. It's still an okay offensive line, but that right side's pretty rough, and it kind of showed at the end of the year last year where Murray was trying to roll out to that side of the field, and he really did not have the time. He was kind of getting banged up because of it, and they didn't at all go out and improve the right side. Will a young guy like Josh Jones step up? We'll see. But Winters, Beachum expected to be out there. It could be worse from Beachum. Beacham's not terrible. I'm not saying that, but I felt like they needed to improve that right side. It's what's kind of weighing them down, and it's kind of just two guys carrying the group here. Luckily, one spot is the most important spot in terms of the offensive line and the left tackle position, DJ Humphrey. So they come in at 20. Maybe a little surprising here. I got the Texans at 19. Now, this is one on paper. It looks good. It looks better than 19 on paper. In my opinion, it looks better. But will it finally play well as a unit together? There are some new pieces, so that actually helps. I went a little bold here, not with Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil's going to start at left tackle. Let's hope he plays every single game because he's fantastic. I went a little bold with Lane Taylor at left guard because I don't think you just sign Lane Taylor to keep him on the bench. I know they have Max Sharping. He moved from tackle to guard a couple years ago out of NIU, so he has upside. I know you want to develop the young guy, especially where the Texans are at, so it's a possibility. But I don't know if you just bring in Lane Taylor to sit him on the bench. He's good. He's just, the reason why teams weren't going after him harder and get paid more is because he has injury concern. But talented guy here. I think you start him here. Maybe you can play him at center and keep Sharping at guard. So it's kind of up in the air who they play here. Justin Britt should be at center. Marcus Cannon, Titus Howard, they're pretty interchangeable. They both feel like tackles that can play guard. I think we can expect Marcus Cannon at right guard and Titus Howard at right tackle. Howard needs to cut down the penalties, needs to develop here a little bit this year, but Cannon should be a phenomenal guard for them. So on paper, they're looking pretty strong. Knock them down a little bit if they don't start Lane Taylor. It wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense to me because he's a good guard. You brought him there for a reason. Maybe it's for a future compensatory pick, but let's see if they can play up to the way they look on paper, because that'd be solid for them, especially if Watson comes back. It can help him out a ton. 18, the Jets, maybe towards the very, very bottom based on the past, based on last year, but they rise up to 18. It's looking pretty damn good on paper, especially for the future. Will it play to that, though, as a unit? Maybe you can't expect it fully right away, of course, but Mekhi Becton's a very promising left tackle. That was a pure raw prospect, too, upside prospect. He impressed, and I liked him as a prospect a lot, but he impressed even me right out the gate there. Elijah Vera Tucker, I think, should be a fantastic guard. I'm glad he's playing guard over tackle because I think he's a way better guard than he is tackle. So one for the future here. Connor McGovern at center, Greg Van Roten at right guard, and then they add Morgan Moses. I like adding him. I think the football team over there could have messed up by letting him go. It's not a crucial mistake, but I like this for the Jets. They weren't afraid to get better here. They traded up for Vera Tucker. They went and got Morgan Moses. They weren't worried about other guys that are maybes, So I like where they're at. It's a pretty balanced group. There's really nothing. I guess the potential of Becton and Vera Tucker are kind of wow, but maybe there's nothing wow today. But it's a pretty good group there. One for the future for sure. This is a pretty balanced group. They could get better at the tackle positions. Mainly these guys got to play better. That's Cam Robinson, of course, who has been a little underwhelming, but okay. They see something. They gave him that franchise tag, pretty pricey, a kind of a trial run. It makes sense. They didn't want to sign him long-term or just let him go because it's rare to come across a left tackle. So they see something with this scheme. I think he can upgrade his play with the new scheme here. Then they have, I like their interior. Andrew Norwell's a solid guard. A.J. Cann, a solid guard. Brandon Linder is a very solid center. Jawan Taylor, I expect to be way better at this point. I think with this new offense, this new scheme, I think we'll start to see that. I think he could be special. He hasn't really shown it in the NFL yet, but he does have to step up. But I think it's a pretty balanced group across the board. I do like the interior a little more. So the Jags come in at 17. I think they'll benefit, like I've been saying, from the new offensive system. 16 is going to be the Rams. On paper, this looks pretty bad, honestly. The Rams' offense line on paper looks, I think, way worse than 16. This is a good example of the scheme, the system, making the coaching, making the offensive line look better. Pretty good run blocking last year. They really got going late year. They got Cam Akers going. I think they had some good concepts here, and the offensive line really helped there in that category. Whitworth's got to stay healthy. He's a very solid left. They're solid at tackle. Whitworth at left tackle. Rob Havenstein at right tackle. Havenstein played very well last year. Whitworth's got to stay healthy. The interior is what on paper looks kind of rough, but they played pretty well in terms of run blocking last year, I thought, especially in crunch time. But they did lose Blythe, but he got extremely cheap deal. He might not even be starting where he's going. So obviously the Rams kind of had, an idea that they could actually maybe improve it with maybe a guy like Brian Allen or whoever it may be. So some question marks there on the interior, but I do expect those guys out there. Tackle play, again, it is solid if Whitworth is healthy and out there. It's definitely a McVay system one there. The Broncos at 15, they got Garrett Bowles at left tackle, disastrous season 2 years ago, great season last year. I thought he improved his play, worked on his technique a little bit, but at the same time, he was getting called for almost every holding 2 years ago, and then last year kind of getting away because every offensive lineman holds, So I think that was a major difference as well. So we'll see what's in store for this year, but promising future there for Bowles. They had Bobby Massey there for right tackle. He's a solid right tackle. It's just about health there, which has been the story for the Broncos as well. So it's a match in a bad way. But he's a pretty solid right tackle. They actually have pretty good depth along the offensive line, too, that I did not list. I'm not predicting to start. Miners they added, the D3 kid who can play center or guard. And they have Muti, who could step up and play in the interior, likely guard if they need him to. But I like Reisner at left guard. Remember, former tackle moved to guard, so some upside. Lloyd Cushenberry from LSU a year ago at center, and Graham Glasgow at right guard. This is what I expect the offensive line to look like. It's pretty balanced, I think, and there's some upside there. 14 is going to be the Bills. Talk about balance. I love the balance of this group. Either they're playing better and better by the week, as a unit. They look like a unit last year. On paper, you may not think that they were that great, but they played pretty well last year. They had some injuries as well, had to move guys around a bit. I like the tackle group. Deion Dawkins is a very solid young left tackle. Darrell Williams played the best year of his career, probably because he stayed healthy at right tackle. I thought he had a phenomenal season last year. And the interior looks pretty balanced as well. They brought back Feliciano. Mitch Morse, a solid center. And Cody Ford, who was a guy that was a right tackle, moved to guard, so he can continue to improve him, where he got hurt last year. So again, I think I like the tackles a lot, but I think it's a pretty balanced group. They played pretty well together as a unit. 13 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens, one that's growing on me. When the idea in my head of me ranking the offensive lines, I thought they would end up a little lower on my rankings, but once I put it together, I made a little bit of a bold prediction here. I actually like what I see. I was a little worried. This offensive line just not the same as it was 2 years ago when it was dominant, but I'm kind of liking it. It's kind of getting back there. Ronnie Stanley just got to stay healthy. He's a phenomenal, maybe the best or one of the best left tackles in football. Right tackle Alejandro Villanueva they add. I like the idea of him at right tackle. That can make him better. They see a fit there. That's fantastic. They add Kevin Zeitler, who I think fits the scheme perfectly. There's a lot of power, gap blocking, so I think he's a perfect fit at right guard. So we know those pieces are good. This is where I went a little bold. Bradley Bozeman has been playing guard, and they kind of had that question mark at center. They had kind of a disaster last year at the center position with snapping. There was some poor weather games that kind of assisted that, but really no excuses. It's an NFL center here. You got to play better. Bozeman has experience at center, so how about you move him there? Ben Cleveland, the rookie from Georgia, let's play him at left guard. Now, Ben Cleveland wasn't like a wow pick or anything. They picked him kind of right where they should, but you just talk about the fit. It's just a perfect fit at the guard for the Baltimore Ravens. I thought he dominated in his reps in man blocking schemes at Georgia, and that's what the Ravens are known for. This is kind of the man power blocking team of the NFL with their scheme, the way they run things, the way they run the ball. So I think Cleveland is going to be it's going to end up being known as a great pick. You know, it wasn't extreme value at the time, but it's such a perfect fit, plug and play guy. So I would love this route, and this offensive line's growing on me. It grew on me making this video. As I'm talking right now, it's growing on me a little more. Health is the big one there. 12 is going to be the Eagles. Health is his big piece here for the Eagles for sure. Andre Dillard had a little bit of injuries. Also hasn't really developed. Yeah, he really shouldn't say that though. Because he hasn't really had the chance to develop that much, but he's been a little underwhelming. Let's be honest here. Been a little underwhelming, but still has upside there at the left tackle position. Isaac Sumalo, left guard. You know, left tackle, left guard, in terms of their talent right now, you could say you can get better over both. Again, Dillard has that upside factor. But that's not the strongest part of the offensive line. Jason Kels, apparently Travis Kels is telling us it's not Kelsey, it's Kels, so everyone learning that. I think right when Jason came in the league, I was calling him that, and then all of a sudden it just changed to Kelsey. So I'm not really sure what that's about. But definitely one of the better centers in football. Did take a step down last year. Brandon Brooks, unfortunate Achilles injury last year. Dealt with some anxiety in the past as well. Hopefully he's good with that, because he's a phenomenal right guard. Are we going to see him on the field every snap this year? But a phenomenal right guard. Right tackle, Lane Johnson, some injury concern, trying to play through it. Tough, but a phenomenal right tackle. So injuries are the big if here, but pretty talented group across the board, if they're on the field. Number 11. On paper, honestly, the Packers' offensive line doesn't look up to number 11, in my opinion, especially because of the changes. But this is a very well-coached unit. It's just they're so good at defining the pieces, but developing them as well. So they will be better. They could even be better in this. Wouldn't surprise me. But they are going to be better than what they show on paper, for sure. Two standout players here in David Bakhtiari, possibly the best left tackle in football. And I'm a huge fan of Elgin Jenkins, his versatility. I mean, he could play all over the offensive line. He very well could, and they're pretty flexible here. Another one that's tough to predict who they'll actually start. Because Jenkins could start at center, and they can move guys. I mean, Turner could even play right guard. It's definitely a possibility. But Elgin Jenkins, I like his game a lot. But Bakhtiari, Jenkins are guys that really, really stand out. Now you're relying on, Turner's been okay. Wish he could step up a little more. Remember they had Wagner last year. They draft Josh Myers. They draft him a lot earlier than I would have thought he would have went. But they see a fit there at the center position. They didn't want to pay a center big money to let Lindsley walk, and then usually it's a team that's like, all right, we'll just develop the next guy. But they drafted him a little higher. Myers, that is, a little higher than I expected. So I would expect them to start him for that reason. And Runyon, they like a lot at the guard position for second-year player out of Michigan. So some guys got to step up here, but there are two big-time bright spots, and I do like Turner as well. But it's mainly because the scheme, the system, but the coaching, the development, all of that. Just seems like that next guy up that's what it's all about with the Packers offensive line. The next guy up plays solid. At the same time, when Bakhtiari was out of there, it didn't look nearly as good as it was. So maybe they're having a problem with the next guy up at the moment. But that is a big piece. It's tough to expect them to overcome having no David Bakhtiari in there. But it affected the entire unit minus Elgin Jenkins big time. But another team to expect to be better than what they look like on paper there. 10's going to be the Chiefs. Add Orlando Brown at the left tackle position. Very good run blocking tackle. Pass protection. He's solid. Could get beat by more of the speed rushers, but he's such a tough body to get around, and he is getting better. And it's kind of left tackle, a little bit of a new thing for him. So we'll see how it is. We'll see how it is with him going from right to left, but it's a very good addition. Joe Thuney at left guard is a big-time addition. They're going to run the ball more effectively because of this. They're going to get their former first-round pick, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, getting going more like he should because of this. So that's big time. Tough prediction here at the center position. Will they go the rookie Creed Humphrey, or will they go with Austin Blythe, a signing from the Rams, who started for the Rams last year? It felt like that was an insurance signing. I would not be surprised at all if Blythe started week 1. I think Humphrey ends up getting most of the snaps there. And he could play guard, so could Blythe. I think they're set at guard. But I wasn't a huge Creed Humphrey guy. I felt like I was another one of those guys that a lot more people were higher on him than me. But I love the fit here. What they're trying to do, they bring in a power blocker, Orlando Brown, and they're doing it with Thuney, and they do it with Humphrey as well. So I think it's a really good fit. That pairing over there with the center to the left, they just complement each other so well. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif comes back. Remember, he opted out because he's a doctor. So that was a good story as well. But pretty solid a few years ago. We'll see if he gets back to that, but it's good to have him back in there for sure. They did add Kyle Long, who played right tackle for some time, but it was talk that he would play guard. I don't think he wins the job there. He could win the job at right tackle. Mike Remmers, they like better at guard. Remember, it didn't play nearly as well at tackle. So that is it's kind of a hole out there. I did like the draft pick of Lucas Niang out of TCU. It was sad that he opted out last year. Rookie, tough that he opts out. Did have some injury concerns in the past, so that definitely played a part. But could he step up and be that right tackle? Opposite of Orlando Brown, it kind of feels right. I'd say not yet, but I kind of like his upside there. Hopefully that works out. And they added Trey Smith, who can compete for a guard spot. I think he's a fantastic guard. He actually was a top recruit at the tackle position, so who knows? Maybe he sneaks in there. But they definitely improved their offensive line and got healthier here, so that's fantastic. Number 9 is going to be the Detroit Lions. It's weird seeing the Lions up here. On paper, I actually love this on paper. I honestly could argue just on paper it's probably better than 9. Not a whole lot, but it's probably better than 9. Will they play to that, though? Maybe you can't fully expect it yet. So that's why I ranked him at 9. It's still looking like a really good offensive line. Taylor Decker, that's one example. He's been a very good tackle. Very good tackle. Has he played up to where we think he could be, where his contract is? I don't think so. He's not too far off. And they paid him for the future, so I think he'll get there. That's kind of just one example. Does this unit play to their potential? Does it play together? But he's a very good left tackle. Looks like they found a solid one in Jonah Jackson there. They also have Stenberg is a solid depth piece, but Jonah Jackson, it looks like they got one there in terms of a solid young guard. Frank Ragnow is one of the better centers in football, could end up being the best in any given year. Big V, remember they signed him to be a tackle last year. I did not like the idea of that because he barely filled in at tackle with a great offensive line unit in the past of the Eagles. He played much better at guard. Now he's going to move to guard, and I think people are kind of writing him off just because he wasn't a good tackle last year. So he's moving to guard. It's not really a big name here. He's Big V. It's not a big name, but he's a pretty good guard. So this could be, and I really like the idea of him next to Penei Sewell, their big-time draft pick, his job might be easier at right tackle. So this is a balanced group across the board. It's got a lot of future potential here. I like the idea of it. Can it come together and play as a unit? This is the part of the Lions that could make them better. If the Lions end up better than expected, I would say it's probably because the offensive line played like one of the best in football and then kept Jared Goff consistently protected because it's been super inconsistent in terms of his production the last couple of years. And then just so Jared Goff ended up playing better than expected. That would be the reason. I think it starts right here, and that's a big reason why they were so pumped to get Penei Sewell and why they drafted him. So the Lions, the team, I should say the offense, really it starts right here, but it's definitely one for the future. Even if it struggles here and there this year, it's definitely one for the future. So remember, Jared Goff played pretty damn well and was thought of as a potential future great quarterback that Super Bowl year when the offensive line was the best in football or one of the best in football. So I'm not saying that's all going to happen, but there's some things to stay positive about here for the Lions. Number 8, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. Trent Williams, one of the very best tackles in football, maybe the best, so he's at left tackle. Mike McGlinchey's been, honestly, he's solid, but he's been a little underwhelming. Not really in terms of run blocking, but pass protection. But he's solid. Solid right tackle there. Laken Tomlinson at left guard. He came in the league as possibly being a tackle, so he's really grown as a guard, solid. They had Alex Mack, who's at the very, very end of his career, but a solid center. And I put Aaron Banks in here. I think they drafted Aaron Banks there for a reason. It's a very solid guard. Will be dominant in run blocking area. So, and then you got two Notre Dame players playing next to each other. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of just, doesn't really play a part on them being number 8 offensive line, but I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm kind of predicting them to start Banks, but we'll see. But yeah, pretty good group. It helps that they don't really have a hole. It helps that they have a big-time player like Trent Williams and solid players like Tomlinson, Mack, McGlinchey. So they come in at number 8. Love the scheme as well. That definitely makes the group better, but it's already good on paper. 7's going to be the Tennessee Titans. Just really one spot that could be lacking for this year. That's the right tackle spot. A little bit of a disappointment in the past. With Isaiah Wilson, of course. Don't have to bring that up, but Dylan Radunes, they bring in for right tackle. They also have Kendall Lamb from the Browns. So they'll have a little bit of a battle there. I think they'll play okay, whoever it is. I'm predicting to be the rookie. I think they'll play okay there because remember, he's moving from left to right. That's good. But on the other 4 spots, pretty damn good, a pretty complete unit. And you have standout guys like Terry Luan, who could be one of the better tackles in football. They missed him when he was hurt. Roger Saffold could be one of the best guards in football, dominant run blocker. Ben Jones, a very solid center there. Nate Davis was extremely impressive last year, so a promising young player. Yeah, I was blown away, but I wasn't expecting him to play as high of a level as he did last year. So pretty promising group here. Just got to stay healthy, mainly Taylor Lewan there. So they come in at 7. It's a big reason why they're able to, they got Derrick Henry, but it's a big reason what helps Derrick Henry here, why they can run the ball so effectively. Which is their number one thing, to their offense there is pound the football, pound the rock. 6, give me the Cowboys. Health is the question here, and it very well could end up being a number 1, really, if it's healthy. Tyron Smith, dominant left tackle, absolutely dominant. But injuries have kind of played a part on him having him decline a little bit because there was one point where is this the best left tackle in football? And maybe some people are like, this might be the best left tackle in football. Maybe some people, he is the best left tackle in football. So the injuries kind of made it so no one's really saying he's the best, but he's definitely up there. But then hopefully he does stay healthy as well. Because remember, they were missing Tyron Smith. They were missing La'el Collins both last year, pretty much the entire year. Both of them were out. Connor Williams, young guard out of Texas. Hopefully he could step up a little bit. They have Biadasz, who's that young center from Wisconsin, who could be a damn good center here. Zach Martin, who is an elite guard. I guess health is the question there. But last time we seen Collins play the right tackle position, he was lights out. So it's a pretty good group across the board. They seem to know how to develop these guys pretty well. They just got to stay healthy here. So they come in at 6. 5 is going to be the Patriots. They really improved this year as a top-tier offensive line from what they did. Isaiah Wynn, hoping he can develop and stay healthy, but a promising young left tackle. Michael Onwenu was lights out last year. For a rookie with not a whole bunch of expectations, the versatility out of the kid as well is fantastic. Can move him around spots, but I think he's going to be he already is a damn good guard. David Andrews, they also have Ted Karras, so they got a good center duo. Not that you need that, but Andrews a very solid center. Shaq Mason is extremely good right guard there, and they add Trent Brown back. The last time we seen him in the Patriots, he played like the best right tackle in football. Am I saying he's the best right tackle, or will he be? No. He's got to stay healthy. But again, at the last time we seen him on the Patriots, he played like the best damn right tackle in football. So it's a pretty good one there. So it's a pretty balanced group across the board. Some bright spots there, and possibly Trent Brown. But yes, Shaq Mason, David Andrews, and Wenwu was lights out last year, like I said. So they're at 5. We're forcing me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we go from Brady's old team to his new team. Donovan Smith at left tackle. I think there is no weak spots as offensive line, but Donovan Smith, Alex Kappa, those are spots where, and I don't know if you can get better from those spots. I don't think it's possible, but that's how good this offensive line is, where those are kind of considered the weaker spots. But Ali Marpet, one of the very best left guards in football. Ryan Jensen, one of the very best centers in football. Tristan Wirfs, already one of the best right tackles in football. He was fantastic last year. This group is evenly great in run blocking, pass protection. I think they're going to get better, too, as a unit, because the unit was kind of just completed last year with Tristan Wirfs. So it's going to continue to get better here. And then, under Tom Brady, kind of taking direction from Tom Brady, just started last year as well. So that kind of also another reason why they continue to get better here. The Colts coming at 3, who, they're always in contention for that top spot. They could end up being that top spot. See, Eric Fisher got an asterisk next to his name because I don't expect him to start week 1. I don't actually expect him to start for some weeks there to start the year because he tore his Achilles. I believe it's kind of toss-up, but I believe he'll have the most snaps at the left tackle position for the Colts, so that is why I listed him. But it also played a part that he's coming off that bad injury and that he won't be starting early on. You got to factor that in because we're talking about the 2021 season. So I think Tevy will be the starter at left tackle. He's kind of had a rough go, but he could improve his game just by playing with this unit in this group. Quentin Nelson is a star, elite left guard. Ryan Kelly is solid center. Glowinski is solid guard. Braden Smith's getting better. Remember, he was a guy that was supposed to be a guard, but a very, very solid tackle. It's one of those groups. On paper, it feels like Quentin Nelson, and in the past, Anthony Costanzo, those two carrying the group. So now it looks like Nelson kind of carrying the group, but they play a lot better than what they are on paper. It's a very good unit. One thing I will say, though, is when Costanzo was out last year, it was solid still, I'd say, on the solid side, but there was a pretty big gap on the elite best Colts offensive line with Costanzo in there. And then without Costanzo, again, still well above middle of the pack still, but it was a pretty big gap. So if Fisher's a solid left tackle. Fisher was healthy and starting week 1. This would probably be my number 2, maybe number 1 offensive line. So it's that close, 1, 2, 3. I'm hoping Braden Smith, he's already solid, but I'm hoping he can take another step further because I expect him to. Ryan Kelly, there was a lot of expectations out of him for him as a young center. Let's see if he can get there. I don't know if he's lived up to that big hype that he had for his center, but he's been solid. Nelson's been fantastic. We knew that. So they come in at 3. 2 is going to be the Saints for me. Love the left tackle duo. Absolutely fantastic here at Terran Armstead, who's extremely underrated, and Ryan Ramczyk, who is possibly the best right tackle in football and actually could be getting better still. So that duo is unbelievable. The question is the interior, but when you see it together, Andrews Pete's been a little underwhelming, I guess, compared to his contract. Has some really good moments, and then is a little underwhelming, like I said, but overall, solid guard in my opinion. Eric McCoy's been a solid center that also can play guard. They kind of talked about that, where really they said we could play Cesar Ruiz at center, we could play McCoy at guard. This is how it's likely to be. Ruiz is going to be a fantastic guard, in my opinion. He's a high draft pick. They didn't really need him at the time when they drafted him in the first round. There's a reason they took him, because he's that talented and because they needed that next man up for the future, which is now. Here we are. So I think Ruiz is going to be a fantastic guard there. It's hard to say balanced because the tackles are so damn good, but it is a balanced group. Meaning there's no holes. It's good across the board. So Drew Brees kind of calling the shots. Now it goes from Jameis Winston, so we'll see if that'll affect it. But you also can look at it a different way. You can see how that affects Jameis Winston. You can see, that the Bucs offensive line didn't play too well when he was there. Now he's got a great offensive line. In my opinion, the second best in football. Does Jameis Winston play a lot better because of that? So we'll learn some things this year. We'll see. Number 1's going to be the Cleveland Browns. Last year we knew they buffed that offensive line. They made it a lot better. I did not expect it to play as well as it did. I didn't expect it to click as a unit right away. I knew it would be great in the future, but it did. It exceeded big time my expectations. So for me, year 2 at Stefanski, year 2 as a unit. It's got to be number 1. Jedrick Wills went from right tackle to left tackle, played lights out. He was my number 1 tackle in that class. He's got so much upside. He's going to get there. Batonio's been playing like one of the best guards in football for some time. J.C. Tretter's been playing like one of the better centers. Wyatt Teller has been playing. He didn't really work out too well for the Bills, so they just kind of found a hidden gem in a way, and it just kind of worked in terms of scheme and unit. But Teller's been fantastic, and Jack Conklin, we knew he was a dominant run-blocking right tackle. He kind of worried in pass protection, but he showed he can get better. He can actually improve, so he can continue to improve here. So it's a great group across the board, so I'm excited about it. It's helping Baker grow. It's making that rushing attack be what it could be, because we know on paper how good it is, and it is that good because they're that good and because the offensive line's that good and the system's that good. So really excited about this Browns group. Offensive line being one of the most important things in football. It's big time here for this. So we'll see how Stefanski and co here in the second year, how they do. Again, we are really excited to watch this team because there's definitely a lot of hype for them, rightfully so. and they're definitely heading in the right direction. So those are my rankings for the offensive line units. A lot went into this one, as you could tell. So smash the like button, subscribe, turn notifications on. All that would be much appreciated. I'm still up here. It's interesting, but that's okay. At the same time, make sure you follow that Twitter. We're always constantly talking about football, talking to you guys on that Twitter. So make sure you follow it. Link down below, description, comments. Yeah, that'd be much appreciated if you can help us out. But that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.